Good afternoon, I'm Marva Richardson, and as always, I'm honored to be back with you this week. Today, we have quite an exciting program, and I'm not going to prolong the time because this program is being hosted today by Councilman at Large, Mr. Mike Brown, and I just want to be able, in the weeks and months ahead, to be able to tune in myself to listen and learn. A lot of things I can't bring it verbally to your understanding, so this is our learning period now. So, Mr. Brown, Councilman Mike Brown, we're going to turn this part of the program over to you.
Well, I thank you very much. And first, before I do anything else, I certainly want to take this opportunity now, as I always do, to give honor to God, who's the head of my life. For I always say, had it not been for the Lord on my side, I certainly don't know where I would be. And I also want to take this opportunity now, while you're still here on the set, with your lovely smile that you have and your beautiful personality, to take the time to say thank you for reaching out to us, to letting us and allow us to be on your show using this hour to talk about some issues that you felt that was in a need for folks to get a better and clear understanding on. So God bless you for that. I watch you from afar and I watch you up close, and I know that you are a kind person, that you are a concerned person, and you want folks to get a clear understanding about what is going on around them. So thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank you so much. And having said that, I have some guests with us. I have my good friend Theo Gregory, and I have Mr. Lance Bruce, who's the vice president of the Delaware State NAACP.
Well, former vice president of the Wilmington branch.
Oh, and former vice president of the Wilmington branch.
I still serve on the executive board.
And also have Mr. Linwood Jackson with us from the NAACP. And I want to, and we are expecting Reverend Calvin Brown real soon. He's still at church. The spirit was high, and I hope that all of you, and pray that all of you had a wonderful, blessed time in the Lord in your churches, wherever you were, and even at home, because the church is within yourself. You know, because God said He's coming back for a church without a spot or wrinkle. He didn't mean the building; He meant you. So He's there serving communion, from my understanding, and once He finishes that, He'll be right over. Again, Ms. Marva Richardson, I thank you. We thank you for this grand opportunity. And so we're going to get right into why we were invited to come back on this show, because we discussed some things on Delaware State Republicans show with the former state senator Charlie Copeland, who allows us to come on at times to discuss issues. And one of the things that was discussed on the show, and I heard that you were very interested in that, Mr. Brother Lance, is about what Calvin Brown brought up about the Black Tea Party. And not so much about just the Black Tea Party, but let me tell you how we started that conversation. About a month and a half ago, he meaning Calvin, was on the 9 o'clock hour with Norman Oliver. And they had a discussion about do the Democrats, who control everything in the state except one office, do the Democrats just take Black African Americans' vote for granted? Do they come along, when they come along, and we have individuals in our community who will hold their hand up and raise them high as if they're higher and brighter and bigger and better than Lord Jesus Christ, or they're better than a slice of bread? And so that was a good question that stuck with me. I'm still trying to find somebody that can give me a clear answer because in my opinion, Democrats have control from the state all the way down to local government. I myself is the only Republican that sits on city council. I thank God that I have the knack to get along with folks, because I have passed about 6 good pieces of legislation since I've been on council. And so I could not have done it without the support of others. I certainly could not have done it without the support of the man sitting next to you, Mr. Land, on your left, which is Theo Gregory. When I first came on council and throughout my 20-some years, I told you before we went on air, how he molded and helped me and to see things in a perspective where you don't have to get loud, you don't have to get boisterous, just use your common sense. And so common sense has to prevail in this conversation today. And you got to keep asking yourself, because folks are going to start knocking on doors. And then you got to start saying to these folks, what have you done for me lately? Where have you been? Where? And then, do you want to get the recycle? In other words, these are same folks that they move from one office to another, and so, by them moving, I call that the recycle. Just because you've been in office for 20, 30 years and they don't think somebody else is popular or better to suit that. So we talked about the Black Tea Party. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, folks thought that we were kidding that night, that morning, but I had gotten, after I got off the set, about 8 phone calls, and Ms. Richardson was one of them. She said, can you explain that? And I said, well, it started off about the conversation we being taken advantage of. It is not so much these days about the party as it is the person who's coming to you. Because being frank with you, gentlemen, both sides and their policies about to run this country in the ground. Both sides, both parties, about to run this country in the ground. On both sides, though, you do have individuals who are talking with common sense. On both sides, we do have individuals who will stand up and make sure that what is being said and done for our country, our state, our county, and our city, people are held accountable. So, Mr. Gregory, you had mentioned something on the show earlier. Last time we talked about this, about if this Black Tea Party gets formed, what are we asking for? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And then you gentlemen just let me a hint, and I'll let you chime in.
Well, my point was that the Tea Party that's there now and movements are generally a planned event, or is something that happens fairly spontaneous around issues that folk can galvanize around, or you go off and you plan the event, and then you have this movement. And my question was, if you're going to have a Black Tea Party, can you realistically say that, in that what issues will be galvanized around? I don't think that you'll get absolute agreement or significant agreement on what issues need to be galvanized around in order to have a Black Tea Party. I'm going to assume, because it's called the Black Tea Party, you're talking about issues that are severely relevant to the African American community, be it urban or suburban or rural, issues that are very, very dear and important to the African American community. Well, I don't know if you're going to get a consensus on that, or you're going to get an agreement on what those issues should be. Now, there are some issues, in my opinion, that Black folks should be mad as hell about right now. The whole issue of education and how we're doing that, the whole issue of law enforcement, particularly as it relates to our drug law enforcement policies. People should be mad as hell about that. So if we haven't galvanized around those two issues yet, we have this whole issue of poverty, where you have the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and it's obvious. I mean, those are facts. So I just pointed to you 3 issues that folk can galvanize around and say enough is enough, no more, and we're going to march forward in unity until we address these issues. The recent statistics on the wealth in America, and I think the median income for African Americans is something like $22,000, only 22,000. Only so many of us are in the upper echelon of 250,000 and above. It's just amazing, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So there are issues out there that one can say, for the sake of this community or for the sake of a community, we have to stop the bleeding. But I don't see it happening. I'm sorry, I don't see it happening.
Before I let you go, because I know you chopping to get to that, Lance. I want to say this though, but as we talked also off camera and off mic, the Tea Party, as it is known now, they formed together out of anger with government having their hands so much into dictating in their lives and no accountability. And so they formed a group who said, we all have this issue about government not being accountable, and we're going to start holding them to accountability. And so that's how some part of the original Tea Party got started. And just because, I want to make this clear, even though they don't say it, It's a bipartisan group of people. It's some Democrats within that Tea Party. It's some independents within that Tea Party who are saying we want to hold government feet to the fire. And you also mentioned a couple weeks ago when we talked about this, is that everybody can't come with all kinds of agendas, spread it all over the place, and nothing gets done. It has to be consensus on 3 issues at least that we say to those who knock on our doors that unless you're willing to address these and we find a way that we can all be on the same page, then we're not going to support you. We're going to put somebody there that we believe that's going to do what we feel is in the best interest for all the people, and not those recycles who've been in office before, who's left, who wants to come back, who wants to run for other offices and move up and do other things and make promises that just not there. And I agree, Mr. Gregory, that we should be angry about education. We should be angry about the dropout rate, especially here in the city of Wilmington.
Yeah, I actually think that should be the #1 issue. I agree with what you guys are saying for the most part, especially about focusing on one issue. If we focus on too many issues, we are being jumbled. And you guys narrowed it down to 3. I'd like to take that narrowed down to 1 and maintain our focus. All of us and most of us agree that education is a big issue in our community, our state, and our nation. And you raised a point about extending the high school the dropout rate, allowing our kids to drop out of high school in the 10th grade or at 16 years old is just crazy in anybody's definition. We all agree on that, and that would help everybody as a whole, all people, black, white, red, yellow, whatever your religious affiliation is. Everybody agrees that education is important, so we can all rally around that and get that law passed to extend, not to allow our kids to drop out of school at all, because we all know that it dramatically affects the urban community big time. I think if we can rally around that unity and get that passed, then now we can get our kids, we'll focus on getting them in college, where we know we're lacking in that area also. We also know that the majority of the people in our juvenile criminal justice system are low income and uneducated for the most part. We just had a big thing with Troy Davis and the death penalty issue. We know that most people, you don't see educated people on death row. And you don't see, like less than 1% of them are in the prison system at all. So if we can focus on that education issue, I think the domino effect would solve a lot of issues right there, just that one issue.
Let me make an observation. In the state of Delaware, there's this thing called FAPE, F-A-P-E, that says that every student is entitled to a free and appropriate public education. Free, appropriate public education. And if you're regular ed, I believe it goes to one age, and if you're special ed, it goes to another age. And we're talking about tinkering with a law to ensure that our kids don't drop out. Well, the problem exists now in that the free and appropriate public education law is not being executed by the system and by folk, and nobody's watching, nobody's advocating, and nobody's doing anything about it. You can reduce the dropout rate right now if you had a voice out there that was truly concerned, truly effective to ensure that kids get a free and appropriate public education under the laws of the state of Delaware. They wouldn't drop out. They can't drop out. But what has happened is we've allowed alternative institutions to be put in place. We've caused kids to become delinquents, and we're addressing them that way, or we put them in some watered down alternative programs and say they're getting a free and appropriate public education. Well, that's just not the case. And the problem is there's no voice out there, there's no advocacy unit out there that's holding the state of Delaware and the Department of Education's feet to the fire. I'm severely disappointed in our elected state legislators, because it's be a checks and balance system between the governor, the executive branch would be DOE, and on the other side, the legislative branch of government. If they would have meetings and convene committee meetings and ask them questions, it would become very prevalent and very obvious that our the laws dealing with FAP, free and appropriate public education, is not being executed at all in the state of Delaware.
I agree to that. And before I let you say something, Mr. Lance, let me say, Mr. Jackson, what I had advocated for in my time when I ran in the 90s, I was not successful. It was just to try to get my name out. I wanted to win, but it was also to get my name out in the early 90s when I ran for state rep. I said then that if elected, I would go down and voice and be the voice to try to change the dropout age. You know, at 16, they can walk in there with a parent and sign themselves out of school. I would say that I would have made a law. I would have gone in and researched the law, and I would have done whatever I needed to do with that law to make sure that youngsters could not drop out of school any longer. And if they didn't go to school, let me finish. And even if they didn't go to school, if they choose to be disobedient, which a lot of them are, I would then, and the parents just let them go haywire and let them do what they want to do. I would then, if they're on public assistance, for every child that's on public assistance that didn't go to school. Now this sounds cruel. But I get the parents' involvement because they don't want that child taken off welfare and off Medicaid. They'd take that child and make them go to school.
No, they don't, let me say this, they don't sign them out, they just stop coming. They just disappear. And many times, you know, your administrators and folks say, well, thank God that they're not coming back. So now you can go try to find them. So there are no systems in place to execute the FAP law, and then there's no one advocating or scrutinizing and saying the FAP law is not being appropriately executed and something needs to be done about it. You got to understand, when you have these policies in place and they are forgotten about or they're not executed, they severely impact an urban community, particularly people of color, and poor blacks and whites and Hispanics. It has a devastating impact on their quality of life, and that's what's happening in the state of Delaware.
And those numbers, I believe, are close to 55% school dropout rate. And I know in Christina's school district and surrounding school district is around that area, and that for African American students, and that's high, and that's a real concern. But I wanted to touch on.
It's 66% in the city of Wilmington.
You know,
that's high.
Exactly, and that's a part of my point. But I wanted to touch on the Tea Party's perception of African Americans. I listened to Herman Cain earlier this week, only African American in the race for Republican president, who said African Americans are brainwashed into voting for Democrats. And just to give a bit of history, back in the 1860s, when one of my ancestors, Blanche Kelso Bruce, served in the U.S. Senate as a U.S. senator, the majority of the African American community was Republican during the Lincoln years. You know, after that, you know, we went with how we voted. You know, we looked at what Republicans voted on and what the Democrats voted on, and we found that it was more in our best interest to vote Democratic. You know, especially when it came to civil rights and voting rights and women's rights and gay rights and every other right that we felt was in our best interest. African Americans changed the way they vote, not because we were brainwashed, but because we believe it was in our best interest. So that concept of we're brainwashed, and I personally thought it was a racist comment from Herman Cain, and so did other black leaders and journalists. And, you know, folks in the media agreed with that. African Americans in the media agreed with that. But I didn't want to focus on that too much, just to say that today we have a tremendous challenge when it comes to deciding what direction we need to move in as a community. We have tremendous disparities between the haves and the have-nots, and most of those disparities fall down on the African American community. And so it's in our best interest today to support the party that's given us the best deal or working in our best interest. And so far for us, the Democrats have been, when we look at from President Obama's job agenda to the health insurance for children, health insurance for women, Republicans call it Obamacare, but we call it health care, you know, for people, for 44 million Americans who didn't have health care, you know, before President Obama took office, now being covered. So we're looking at what's in our best interest as opposed to voting for the party because we like so-and-so and so-and-so in that particular party, you know. So that's one of the fallacies. that I hope gets cleared up, moving into 2012 election. The other thing is finding out what the Republicans mean, and maybe you can clarify this for us or define this for us when they say we want to take back our country. I'm puzzled on that because I really don't understand what they're going to take back. Because it's pretty much been the same.
Well, I'm puzzled too because the simple fact that whoever made that we want to take back our country statement, I don't believe that they, in my opinion, that they're speaking for every single Republican.
Right.
And so I know they didn't speak for me. I'm very vocal myself.
Right.
I can say for whatever I want to say and when I want to say it. So on the national level,
right.
And I want to make this clear, on the national level, I have no control. Only with my vote is my control button. But on local level, when we talk about how we can touch and feel our politicians, on local level, how we talk about how we can see them in the restaurants and the barber shops and walking down the streets and coming into our parades and walking into our community, on the local level, I can verbally get in their face and say to them, what have you done for me lately?
Right.
I can't understand half of the jobber do not wish to get involved with half of the jobber that's going on in the national level because they don't have their act together. And I can't get in the middle of what they're talking about and say to them, explain to me a little bit more clear so I can take it back home to my people. I'm not in Washington, D.C. I'm here in Wilmington, Delaware. And so here in Delaware, I'm saying that as it's not, if you look at the individuals and see, you said it so clear about your relative and your ancestor about being Republicans way back then. And so I look at it this way, and this is my opinion, that when the times changed, that blacks started switching over to Democrats. And I don't know this for a fact, but this is what I've been told. So I'm only going by on some hearsay that makes sense because everybody can't tell the same lie. That when it went back, you said it, and you even said it, in the best interest of us.
Right. Right.
And they provided some stuff for us.
Right.
Well, we at the point now where we're looking for them to give us all the time. I do know for a fact that if you look at the party that I come from locally, we're saying, hey, we want to come in and we want to be a part of you. We want to show you. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to go out there and get your own. We want to make sure that we can teach you how to throw that fishing rod into the lake and fish for yourself so you don't have to stand in line.
Right. I believe the Democratic Party wants to do the same thing. But, the Tea Party Republicans, for an example, I think what the guys were saying, and how they're not representing us fully in this day and age. There was a time when the Republicans, and there's nothing wrong with supporting the party that's supporting you. And at this point in time, you just said, we all agree, we hear it all the time from a national level that the Republican Tea Parties want to take the country back. And it's like nobody's trying to go back nowhere. We want to keep moving forward. We done progressed so far, and we want to continue to go there. And so one of the things that's boggling my mind right now as it pertains to helping the community, I mean all the community, all Americans, is, the Tea Party Republicans, they give special tax breaks to the big oil companies and billionaires, as opposed to helping out their constituents, the people that they claim to serve, and that is nationally and locally. It's like if we have a Republican Tea Party here in Delaware, are they advocating tax breaks for the rich, billionaires, and when I say rich, I mean billionaires, people who have boogles of money, who can afford to give their fair share. What's wrong? I think it's something wrong in the United States of America where a teacher or a nurse or a construction worker who earns like $50,000 should pay higher taxes than somebody who's pulling in $50 billion or $50 million. You see, that's what we got going on right now. And the Tea Party Republicans support this initiative on a national level. And I'm just curious if they support that on a local level, because you said that.
Well, if I had known that you were going to have those kind of questions, I would ask the Republican Party to give me the contact number to, if they had it, to the Tea Party.
But surely you're aware.
So they can come in and you can answer those questions. I can't answer for the Tea Party. I'm not a member of the Tea Party.
Right. But
let me finish. I'm not a member of the Tea Party. What I wanted to come in here and do and talk about what we can do as a race, as African Americans, to try to form a organization which came out of the conversation about being a black Tea Party, having our own agenda, having something that we can present to local elected officials who are coming to ask us for our vote. You're reading. Wait now. You're reading some questions off over there, which I have I can't even answer.
That's okay.
I never shook hands with anybody in the echelons of the Tea Party. Only one person I had a contact with, and that was Christine O'Donnell, because she ran for United States Senate against Chris Coon. And when she ran, and the reason why, let me clear this up now. The reason why I supported Christine O'Donnell, because she was a Republican. Just like the Democrats went on board and supported the Democratic Party, I'm the only Republican in the city of Wilmington. I was not going to not let my voice be heard as a Republican coming and ask me for assistance. I wasn't going to sit home